if anybody wants to get into the industry, the first thing they should do is go and watch behind the scenes the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
My guest today is Ahmad Sharif. He's a well-known writer, producer, director based here in Qatar, from Qatar. So, how did you actually go into like the film industry? Was that something you grew up around with, or?
So my dad started my dad started. He had a photography studio, and he used to do photography, portraits, weddings, stuff like that. Then he started doing video.
Okay.
Then he started working for the radio. He used to read the news, نشرة الأخبار.
Oh,
He used to read
okay.
the news in the 70s. And then television, and then and then he became a journalist, and he became a news anchor.
Okay.
So he was in the media field always, like since he was young.
Did that inspire you to go in that field,
So
or?
he always had. So there's always cameras in the house all the time.
Okay.
When I was young, DV cameras or even like film. There's 16 millimeter film camera, and I used to make stupid videos using them because he just used to show me how to put the tape in and press record and So I used to do that, and I used to make silly videos by myself and with friends, and then uh, I just kept doing it as a silly hobby, right? Like there was never any intention to do it.
Like as a career?
Yeah, I was young. Like, I was like preteen. I was like a teenager as well. And then like what we used to do is we used to get before there was like before there was accessible editing software, right?
Yeah.
Softwares like editing softwares always they were either like linear,
Yeah.
or like you had to pay for that. Like it wasn't accessible. And used to get the tape, put it in the camera,
Oh,
film the scene, and then rewind, watch it back in the tape. Like, okay, this is good. Okay, we stop it at the end of the scene and then press record for the next scene. So I used to edit in real life, in real time, as I'm filming, and then just digitize it and then just watch it back. Don't even digitize it. We just watch it straight from the camera, like to the TV. Yeah, which ruined most of the tapes that we use because like, the more you
like rewrite, overwrite it.
overwrite it, or the more you like play it back, it gets damaged.
Yeah.
And that's how I started. I didn't really ever consider doing it because it was never something that I could study in Qatar. And like my dad studied in Lebanon. He studied in Lebanon, and he studied in the UK.
Okay.
So at that time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just study in Qatar. Like I don't know where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And even if I went to the UK to study, even if I studied it, I don't know where I was gonna work. So I'd never thought about it. As time went on, and like I finished school, took a gap year, which turned into two, and then I was khas, I was like, now I didn't want to go to uni, but my dad's like, you have to go to uni. I was like, but I don't want to study any of this junk. He's like, well, what are you gonna do in life? And you have to do something. So I wasn't gonna go to uni, but then someone told me about SAE Institute,
Yeah.
in Dubai.
Dubai. That was.
Yeah.
I think back then it was like they recently opened.
They had just opened like the year before, so it was like very new. And I went there to check it out, and when I saw it, it was like it was exactly what I imagined studying. Like I didn't want to sit down in classes and do like notes and take notes and do exams. And it was like 70% practical work. There was some academic stuff, you have to, obviously, because everything you study has to have an academic side. But that was so practical, to the point where you get, for every module, for every like class you take, the final like grade is based on something you make. So you make stuff, which was exactly what I wanted to do. And I studied that, and the cool thing about it was it was an accelerated program. So I was finished less than 3 years with a degree, which was perfect for me, considering I just spent 2 years doing nothing, not doing nothing, but 2 years not studying.
Not studying. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I got into it, because there was an opportunity and I just took it. Otherwise, like if I didn't hear about it, I don't know what I'd be doing right now.
I remember your humble beginnings when you did that Office remake thing.
That was in uni.
Yeah, that was part of the uni.
Yeah.
And then you for a little bit of time you moved to YouTube and you were doing some skits and sketches
Oh, yeah.
with Adnan, who's a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
What did you learn during that time when you were creating those sketches? Were you did you guys sit together and write together and then shoot it together, or was there any sort of process doing that?
Well, we never had a process. It was the early days of YouTube. It was like 2007 or 2008. YouTube was only like 3 years old back then, or less maybe. But it just started picking up with YouTubers, content creators, what we call now. But back then they were just called YouTubers. There's no such thing as content creator. But it was the beginnings of content creators because it was the only platform back then that it birthed like the modern day influencer. Like what became an influencer now. It started on YouTube in like 2008, 2009. There are yani, me and Adnan would watch a lot of YouTube because we were students and we had a lot of free time, and we just would watch YouTube just to pass the time, and we both liked different vloggers and stuff like that. Uh, and we just like, what? We're just as funny as these guys. And we just put the camera on one day. Like literally, we were sat in my house. We were bored. Like, let's put the camera on. He put the camera on, and we just sat there and just said junk to the like we did. We just said nonsense towards to a camera, and we're like, hey, this is funny. Let's edit it, and we edited it, and it just came out with like a 2 minute video. We posted it, and it wasn't great, but like our friends liked it. So we're like, okay, let's just make more. Can I swear? I don't know. No, but it's okay. All right. It's okay. Beep. I probably I swore like 3 times. I don't know. That's okay. And then yeah, so then we just put it up on started to upload more, and the more we uploaded, the more we noticed people were like they loved the content, especially people that are our friends. And suddenly, back then, like it was hard to get like 1,000 views on YouTube. Like as a new, like right now, you could probably make a video on YouTube and get 10,000 views just by clicking a few ads or whatever you need, like get a sizable amount of views. But back then there was no such thing. If you got 300, 400 views on a video, that was great. Great thing, yeah.
No YouTube algorithm also.
No, there wasn't an algorithm. So that didn't help you. The only way people would watch your videos is if they were subscribed to you. That's the only way they get notified that you've uploaded the video.
Let's move away from that whole YouTube, because right after university, you came back to Qatar and you started working here. You started off as a director, or what did you start off as?
Well, before I came back to Qatar, I did a few things like I was working in the Emirates, and I made a few things, right? Okay. Like I need to put that in there before because that's when I also learned a bunch of stuff, like how to be a producer basically. Oh, okay. And then or producer and editor, because in the world of like social media creation, there's no such thing as editor director. Yeah. You're either producing or you're editing if you're doing everything, and then in between you might give direction. Yes. But mainly there's a lot of editing, post production that goes into the content. And filming it is like, well, if it's social media content, it's like true to life. It's like you're filming something that's happening live. There's no like direction involved. It's, I don't know, people watch Instagram these days and see these people and how they film stuff. There's no real direction.
Yeah, or like a formula to create that.
Yes, exactly. And you just but in any case, that helped. And then I came here, and then after a while, I did a few like jobs, and then I worked with Jazeera for a while, and then I joined DFI. Okay. Uh, and that's really when I started to consider making movies more, like taking it more seriously, because until then, it's like, okay, I just need to find a job so I can get paid, so that I can pay bills. And then once I joined DFI, it's like, oh, this is perfect, because now this is another place where I can work and make movies for like as if it's my job. Yeah. Which is why I was able, and I had the opportunity to make movies and make short films and content and stuff like that for DFI.
Were you always the type of person who enjoys things that are behind the scenes, working behind the camera, or were you the type of person who would like to like sit down in a room and kind of come up with ideas?
Initially, like when I was younger, you have the energy. You love to work on set. I worked on loads of sets, movie sets, not always as director, but like being part of the crew, being part of the crew that makes the movies, you know, short films, commercials, ads, all sorts of stuff. I've had the pleasure of being in a lot of sets. And when you're younger and you have the energy, that's great because you learn so much and it's fun. And it's like a communal experience because you're with the same people for a long period of time, and it makes it you get bonds from this. Like you come out with friendships and stuff, so it's fun. The older I get, the more I just want to sit in a dark room and come up with ideas, basically.
Tell me a little bit about your short film, The End of the Road. How did that happen? Did you come up with a script and then go on and filmed it, or was that idea always something in the back of your head that you actually wanted to?
Yeah. Well, you see, the idea for the film I've had for many years, like before, and I just kept, when you sit with someone, like you tell them, bro, it would be an amazing idea for a film, this and that. It's like one of those things. I actually said it to people before. I was like, oh man, guess what? If you make a film like this, it'll be so good. And then eventually, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna write like this idea and see how it goes. And it's basically based on a story that I heard. I don't know where I heard it first, but I heard it from multiple people or multiple sources who said it in different variations. Like every time I hear it, there's small differences, and and I'm sure people, if they watch the movie, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I kind of know the story. I've heard the story. It's like a
It's something like familiar
yeah, yeah, yeah,
to
yeah. To Arabs, to
yeah, to
Arabs,
Arabs. Yeah, yeah.
and it's a folk tale. It's a folk tale. So um, I wanted to make because I thought it had a cool ending. I actually changed the ending from what the original ending was in the folk tale. I changed a bunch of things. You have to, and I added stuff to it, and added an arc and. But in any case, I wanted also to do something that was like relative to Qatar and growing up in Qatar, and I had like memories and experiences, and I wanted to like put some of those in there. So there's actually little bits in the film where I actually like specific shots and specific locations where that actually have a deeper meaning than what is presented in the film. Yeah.
When I watched it, I was like, oh, I can relate to this, and even that orange taxi, it was
Yeah, yeah.
such a
The Orange Taxi was the main centerpiece because it was like it takes me back to a time where, like, when I was a teenager, and you just go out, like, you go out and you get in a cab, and even though there's nothing much to do here back then, like in the 90s or 2000s, yeah, in the early 2000s, you get in a cab, and like the fact that you can go anywhere, that was so cool to me. It's like freedom, you know. مدير روح anywhere, he goes anywhere, it doesn't matter. There's no restrictions. And it was so cheap, like I don't know, 8 reals or something, 7 reals, take you from one end of the city to the
yeah.
other.
Back then, like if you tell your family, like I went to that place, or like the south of Qatar or the north of Qatar, they'd be like, you're crazy. Who goes there?
So it was like such a sense of freedom, and having to walk in the heat and like waiting for one, and some of them don't stop. I wanted to add the scene like that in the film but we didn't have the time for that. But um, so I wanted to make something that like pays homage to that taxi and to those times, so that I can sort of immortalize it somehow, because everyone forgets about that, like that time. Like they kind of this old cabs. Only recently I've started to see them in like museums, but no one ever. They just disappeared slowly, and nobody cared.
No, yeah, yeah,
Suddenly
yeah.
there's new cabs and
New
stuff.
cabs and new companies and limousines
Yeah, it's like,
now.
wait, doesn't anyone care? Where did they go? you know? And all the guys who used to drive them, they were like they had such personalities. Now it's like these robots driving. They all say the same thing, and they dress the same, and
So you went from writing it, and then did you also direct it?
I directed it. I wrote it. I directed it. It was from scratch. It was my original idea, and very closely worked with the editor as well. Yeah,
I'm curious about, like, because you wrote it and you directed it. Were there like certain scenes or certain things in the short film that you had to change on the spot? and edit your writing as you were filming it, or do you are you the kind of person who, if you wrote that script, you'll stick to that script?
Well, considering I was very meticulous with the script, like I wrote it over a long period. Like I didn't just write it and then develop it once or twice, and then go into production with it. I've written it, written it and rewritten it a bunch of times
Oh
before I even
wow.
took it to development. You know, like from in my own by myself. So I reached a point where I thought it was almost completely ready to go to production. But obviously, when you go into development, some things have to change because of budgets, because of
Yeah,
whatever. So yes, things change before development. During filming, there were some situations where we had to change a few things, maybe a few shots we couldn't do, or a few shots we had to add. But in terms of the writing of the dialogue and stuff, I didn't have to change
that
much.
didn't jeopardize anything to do with the script and how
Uh,
the storyline.
I mean, look, there were scenes in the script that were removed completely before production,
Okay.
like during the
Yeah,
development.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But during production, no, that wasn't the case. Production is always hard, and we had a hard time to film this specific film because of there was a lot of locations. We had to get a lot of permits, and because of permit issues, we had to split the filming into two different blocks,
Yeah.
like 6 months apart. Yeah. Which was annoying, but we did it and we finished the film. I think that it did probably hurt the film a little bit that happened, but ultimately, um, I think because I felt the film was written well and edited well, I felt it didn't affect it or impact the end product too much.
How do you know that once you've written something that this is the final version, this is the one
Never,
we should? Oh, never.
never, no. It's never final. It's never ready. You always want to, especially if you wrote it, you always want to add and change. I've never once felt like You can always keep going with your, especially if you create, create music or art or you write or whatever it is. You can always keep going. You have to put your foot down one day and say, you know what, خلاص, enough. I've been working on this for 7 years. I need to release it now. You know what I mean?
It's based on the time. You're like, oh,
you
enough is
know,
enough.
like release it, move on, because you'll never be fully satisfied,
Yeah.
and you'll never come up with the end product that you imagined.
What are some of the challenges that you face as a, if you know, like as a writer and a director? If you're, let's say you've written your film and you've directed your film, what are the challenges? Is it hard to move from one to the other, or do you think there's some sort of connection as far as like, because directing is quite different to writing. You know, when you're writing, you're kind of imagining how the scene is,
It's
or
the
how
opposite process.
it's the opposite
It's
pros.
the complete opposite, because when you're writing, you're imagining and writing what you're seeing on paper.
Yeah.
Directing, you're reading what's written on the script and you're doing it in real life. It's the opposite process. Yeah.
Was that hard to like
No,
kind
I mean,
of?
look, I always want to write and direct and write my own films. I will never direct a film that I haven't written, but I don't mind writing for someone to direct. Okay. But um having said that, it's when you write something, sometimes it's best if you want to direct it. If you are too attached to it, then you might not see the flaws in it. You might not see ways to make it better. You're so fixated in what you've written, yeah, that you are not willing to budge or change. Whereas if you bring someone else to direct it, they can look at it and they can imagine something different, better than what you have, because you can't see the flaws in it. Yeah. They can, so they can adjust certain things to make it better. So there is there's a big difference, obviously, between writing something and directing it. Yeah. There's a different set of skills altogether. But uh, there should be a clear definition, I think, between the person who writes and the person who directs, whether it's the same person or not. But you, even as the writer and director, have to change your whole mentality to jump into the production.
Was it hard to detach from that, from writing to directing? Was it hard for you, or is it hard for you?
I think I can't, at the time of making this specific film. Like usually, you'd have to change your mentality and change modes. You know, because okay, you want to do exactly what's written on the script, but when you reach the location and when you see the actors, when you visualize everything that you visualize starts to become a reality in front of you, you want to change. There are things you want to change, right?
Yeah.
So, but in my case, like it was a tough production, right? And some days I was like, I just want to do whatever is written on the script. So yes, it was tough to adapt, but I think having a good team helps because they can advise you, yeah, and help you accomplish what you're trying to do. Yeah.
That's actually a good point that you brought up. Because writing, you're kind of by yourself. You're in that room, and you're kind of having this conversation with yourself. But when you're directing or you're on a movie set, you're kind of have to establish some sort of communication skills that you're able to communicate to your DP or to, um, different
Departments.
yeah, different departments in in the on the film set, let's say. How are you able to establish these connections? Are you like, do you look for specific people to work to that you're comfortable working with, or do you kind of um, create new relationships with the TP or the production or the producer or the
Yeah.
even the sound guy? Like, do you feel like you have to establish new communications, or do you prefer working with the same team that you've been working for the past years?
Well, I think all filmmakers will tell you, or all directors at least, will tell you that they always prefer working with certain people. Yeah. Like I prefer working with certain DPs, editors, sound, whatever. But that's not ideal for you to grow as a director because if you continue to work with the same people, then everything you make is gonna look the same, pretty much, or is gonna have the same sort of final outcome. You can never, I think, develop yourself as a filmmaker unless you start exiting your comfort zone and you're like, oh my, it's good to have those people, but there comes a point you can always go back to working with them. That's fine, but there comes a point where okay, you need to challenge yourself and see how much you can do with a new DP or a new editor. Me personally, like I've worked. You know who I work with as a DP, and like I always work with them. Yeah. And I like working with them because we understand each other. But then we both hit a ceiling because we have very similar thinking, me and him. So I maybe sometimes it's best to find someone who I've never worked with who has different ideas and different experiences that they can lend to my vision. So yeah, I believe it's pros and cons for both, but it's always good to challenge yourself and to leave your comfort zone, um, to see how far you can go. As far as communication, the rest of like the departments that you work with, like there's because if you're the director, there's always a layer between you and those people anyway. There's always like the producers there, yeah, or the production manager is there, and they're always like they're asking you questions, or the art directors asking you the questions, and you're giving them the feedback, and they're going on working. So in development or pre-production, it's good to make sure everyone's on the same page, and that's a normal part of filmmaking. You in pre-production, all the departments meet with the director and they take the feedback, they understand the director's vision, and then they move on from there. Yeah.
So I grew up around cameras a lot, and I've always like loved to be behind the camera and working with cameras and stuff.
Mm.
For a person like me, how can I kind of find my way to go into the film industry to actually be part of a production or be part of a group of people that we can work together and come up with like films? How can I go on about it?
Well, depends what you want to do. Do you want to make films, or you want to make, like, what do you want to make?
So
Films or ads or like.
for me personally, I love the challenge. So like if someone comes up to me and says, let's make a commercial, I love that, to take on that commercial. Some people will come and ask me, let's do a documentary, and I love to. So I like to be versatile with my camera work, but
And you consider yourself as a camera, like
Yeah, I feel like I'm more of a camera operator.
and you want to become what, like like a director of
Yeah,
photography.
director of photography. How can I grow as far as like
Very simple. You need to get into the camera department on big sets.
on big sets?
Yes. You can continue to do what you're doing and taking small jobs, and that's good for you because you still gain from that.
Yeah.
But you will never reach to that level if you don't work on big sets with big names, with experienced DOPs, and then experienced first ACs and second ACs, because you'll probably go into it as like third AC or something.
Yes.
You'll be the guy pushing around
The
the
cart.
just the magliner with all the lenses and stuff. So and then like you'll be the guy who like the second AC will be like, give me that lens, and you like, here you go. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that was my experience being on a film. One of the first film sets that I was on was actually with you, where you invited me as a runner. It was as a runner, if you remember that story.
The first time you
The
ever,
first
the
time
first time.
that was the first time that actually I was like, I was so um, I was so inspired, and I like for me it was such a weird um, place to be at, and like I felt like, oh, like I'm at the right place. Like this feels really good, you know, and just like I mean, as a runner, you're kind of expected to kind of work with all the departments. So like it was fun to like see the cameraman working, you know, with the DOP and like how they come up with their movie sets and how to light it. And I love that moment where the director, you know, that first day on the movie set where the director calls everyone and you're kind of huddled up in a circle and you know
Yeah.
he talks and
Yeah.
about his vision and what
Yeah.
he's trying to you know achieve and things like that and you're like it feels it's a good feeling to have that type of group of people with the same mentality going towards that
Yeah.
one goal of trying to like create this art basically. So so that was the first moment where I was like I was just inspired by the DOP and the
Who was the
cameraman.
DOP then?
I believe it was Tom Hines.
Tom. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, and I think
Which
Edward.
which 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 production was that?
So
Remind me.
this was the Action Man commercial that we did in City Center. Yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
like that was like
That was so.
what year was that?
I think
2012?
2010.
10? 2010.
Yeah, 10 or 11. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a lot.
13 years ago, man.
I've so this is a weird thing. I've always been around like I was always invited to TV stations and like they'll put me in on weird like TV programs as a kid, you know, like they'd have these like kids shows and stuff and I'd always be invited. For some reason like I never knew like I was just always invited to these type of things and I remember walking into like studios or like, you know, I just like I couldn't process what was happening. So the first time I got to actually process what is happening around me was on that film set that we shot. Like funny when I look back at it, like that's what I remember from my childhood. My dad would be like, just go inside the TV station. I'm like, I don't know who, well, like, where should I go? Just go, just go. You know,
Somebody will, take you.
and then like
It's dangerous.
I'll come, yeah, I'll come out, and then like the next day they'll be like, hey, I saw you on TV. What? What? What
But you
would
got
you?
paid for it though, right?
No, it was
Bad.
no, it was one of those like kids shows and things
So
like.
you don't get paid for it.
No, it was like
So you did it for
they
free.
did it for free, you know. Like they'll like ask me to come in, you know, and like they're like, oh, you know, you speak really well. You speak really well, you know. Your English is not bad, you know. Hey, come, you know. And I never understood it, but it just I remember the film sets and the big cameras, and that was just so interesting to me. And then, like I said, the first experience I had was with you actually, and on that film set, it was just
Yeah.
something inspired me, and I've always been chasing that, but just because here because I think part of trying to be on film sets and stuff is to actually have if you're connected to the right people, you can kind of um, uh, people will start asking you to actually come on film sets and help them if they find you as a helpful
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of how I started my career. You know, you kind of jump started my career.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, look, anytime, anytime you come as a runner.
I was a runner.
So funny story. You want to tell the story about the runner joke, or should I?
I don't think.
because I just remember the you could tell.
To make the story short, Ahmed calls me up and he's like, we need a runner, and I'm like, yeah, sure, man, but I'm overweight, and I was like, sure, but I'm not a good runner. We started laughing hysterically. And you're like, no, just come. It's a film set, and I'll explain everything to you. I was like, yes, yes, I'll be there.
Yeah, that was funny. Hold on. Good thing you didn't make that joke ever since.
Yeah, it still sticks to me. And I mean,
Yeah, no. The good thing about trying to be a filmmaker here, Doha, is that it's actually kind of a small like filmmaking community. There's really only like 3 or 4 like production houses or I don't know what else to call them, but like um, companies that actually have the capacity to make movies, and ads and stuff like that. This is outside television and media. I'm talking about like specifically production and on films, ads, stuff like that. So, to be able to once you get your foot through the door, it's actually very good because then you meet people quickly, and then you start to make contacts and connections, and can then spread yourself out and try and get onto as much work as you can. The other bad thing is, it's because it's so small. There's not always that much to work on. So you just have to kind of keep grinding and hoping to get on film sets and stuff. Um, but I mean, in filmmaking, someone like you asked me what's the best thing to do, and I told you get on film sets. That's it's very broad, like a piece of advice. Of course, you'd want to do that, but like the idea is that initially you're not going to make money, right? And that puts a lot of people off. Like they're like, oh, I'm not going to make money. Or why should I? You might make some money, like, but it's not going to be that much. You're not going to make money that's fair to the amount of time you're gonna work. Let's be honest. Like you're gonna work your socks off for like a week, 12 hours a day, whatever it is, and you're gonna get paid like normal wage, but it's not gonna justify working all that time,
yeah, it's true.
right? But the payoff is you'll enjoy it. So it's something that you'll happily accept to do something you love. So people who work in this business love it. That's why they work in it. So it's easy to find like-minded people who are in the same position as you, who are like, I want to make movies, but I don't know what to do. And then you can all get together and you can make stuff. And that's what a lot of people do. They get together as like independent, either creatives or tech or people who are technical. They get together and they work together and they just create stuff for free. Like it's not like a paid thing. The someone directs, someone writes, and someone films, and someone has the lights, and it's a DIY thing, and they just end up creating movies. And it usually, like, that's how they hone their craft and keep them busy and build a portfolio that you can then go and say to a company, oh, I can apply to work here because I made this and that. Okay, this film didn't go anywhere, but I made, look at what I did. This is what I've made. So that also is very helpful way, is to get with like-minded people and do the things you want to do. Don't wait for someone to tell you to make it. You make it yourself, and then someone will take notice, and then you can get on to making the bigger projects.
And then just before we sign off, over the years, what is what is an advice that you've actually gotten, or something that you've learned and you would advise other uh, people or creatives who would love to go into the film industry? What is something that that actually resonated with you?
I'll tell you. I know exactly what I'm going to say. Yes. If anybody wants to get into the industry, the first thing they should do is go and watch a behind the scenes of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There's about 30 hours of behind the scenes footage. Watch the whole 30 hours, okay? Watch it. If you think that looks fun, then go and enter the industry. Wow. If you think that is what you want to do, then go and do it. If you think this is like what is wrong with these people, then it's not the industry for you. Because that 30 hours of footage of behind the scenes of that making that film is the perfect interpretation of what the reality of filmmaking is. Because it shows you the long hours, it shows you the different departments, it shows you the long the the stress that you go through, how a film starts, how it is made, then how it ends, etc. It's like it's basically like a 30-hour workshop in filmmaking. And if you finish the 30, if you get to the end of the 30 hours and you're like that was amazing, then go and make
Go.
movies.
What a perfect way
Yeah, there you go.
to like test what can
That's
actually
how
be done.
that was the realization that I had when I watched the 30 hours behind the scene. Well, I've Lord of the Rings is my favorite film of all time, right? So I love it. I love the books. I love the movies. Uh, I would watch the behind the scenes. I don't know what year. I think 2006 or I don't know when they released the entirety of the 30-hour behind the scenes. It might have been released with the Blu-ray discs. So maybe 2005 or six.
And this is right before you went
It
to.
was before I went to uni. When I watched that and I saw that, that was the greatest thing I'd ever watched. Like it
Wow.
was so good, and I was like, "This is what I want to do," and then I did it. That's exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's perfect, man. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming
man.
on the show, man.
No
It's
problems.
actually fun. I like. I want to talk some more, but
No problem.
these chairs are not very
I
comfortable.
know, um,
Well,
and that's with cushion.
well, I mean, I'm sure we'll have a part two with
I'm
this,
sure,
and
man. No
I
problems.
appreciate you. I appreciate you coming
Habibi, no
here.
problems. Anytime.
Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you guys enjoy. See you.